my name is Ronald. I'm reporting live in from Fort McKay, Alberta, where the city has recently sold the rights to the government in order to commit fracking. And as you can see, the environment has never experienced such a golden age. Wildlife has never been more abundant, as you can see. The water is so clear, it would make Flint, Michigan proud. And the skies shine are radiant gray. But seriously though, what the frack?
In order to know what the exact consequences of what fracking consists of, it is important to know what fracking is. Natural oil reserves created over thousands of years can be found in abundance deep within the layers of the earth. These natural reserves, however, cannot be easily extracted as they predominantly reside within shale beds. Extracting oil from these requires the shale to be broken up or fractured, hence the term. Hydraulic fracking is the process that injects a cocktail of high-pressure water, sand, and other chemicals into the earth to facilitate the initiation of a fracture. Canada is particularly rich with these natural reserves. As a result, the natural gas and oil industry have become an essential part of the Canadian economy, providing Canada with a secure and cost-effective supply of energy. It has also allowed Canada to maintain oil independence, something that was a particular concern in the mid-2000s when natural gas production began to decline. Fracking practices do not occur equally and are concentrated within certain regions. A divide exists between Western and Eastern Canada, with the province of Ontario acting as the dividing line between the two. British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba encourage and practice fracking, while Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland currently have banned the practice on the basis of environmental concerns. Despite these two sides, Ontario has remained neutral in the matter, neither banning nor utilizing the practice. This regional divide exists mainly due to the Western Canada Sedimentary Basin, the largest reserve of natural gas and oil within Canada. The economic potential of this basin is simply too good for these provinces to pass up, resulting in a pro-fracking political stance despite the environmental concerns. The majority of concerns that arise from fracking are surprisingly not related to the actual fracturing of shale beds, but instead are predominantly related to the high levels of water consumption and disposal of wastewater. Fracking operations utilize substantial amounts of fresh water during the process. For example, high-volume fracking operations utilize approximately 50,000 to 100,000 meters cubed per well. For comparison, 20,000 meters cubed of water can be used to produce up to 9 acres of corn to full maturity. These operations, being incredibly water-intensive, require a large source of fresh water nearby. As a result, the majority of fracking operations occur in close proximity to lakes and rivers. Pipelines and infrastructures as well are being built around these same rivers, massively altering the landscape of the area. Once water is used in a fracking operation, it becomes rendered useless. The wastewater produced is laden with chemicals, heavy metals, hydrocarbons, and carcinogens that remain present unless heavily treated and filtered. Once treated, this water is disposed of into bodies of fresh water, dumped onto land, or sometimes even sprayed onto roads for dust control. Research on the treatment facilities indicate that it is successful in removing up to 90% of the chemicals and metals that are found within the wastewater. However, the salt concentrations found within the wastewater were several times higher than that of seawater. It has also been found to be ineffective in removing radium. Radium activities in the stream sediments near the discharge points were found to be 200 times higher than sediments found further upstream. Disposal practices vary by region, but two main methods of disposal exist. Wastewater is either pumped deep within the Earth's surface to create a well, this occurs in 95% of the situations, or through surface storage, lime ponds or storage containers. Both of these disposal methods have negative consequences on the environment. The formation of wells leads to the possibility of the wastewater seeping into the groundwater. The other consequence of disposal is the creation of tailing ponds as a result of disposal into fresh bodies of water, or through lined ponds. Tailing ponds are bodies of water that are filled with toxic chemicals, debris, and waste. Birds, insects, and other animals that interact with these ponds are likely to absorb the toxins either from the pond emissions or from drinking the water itself. It is also possible to induce seismic activity as a result of fracking. One notable instance of the effects of fracking occurred in a small neighborhood in Fox Creek, a small town 3 hours outside of Edmonton. In early 2015, Fox Creek experienced a 4.4 seismic earthquake, only to have another one occur in June. These earthquakes cause physical damage to the city infrastructure as pipelines run the risk of breaking and water supplies run the risk of contamination. This is all caused by the movement of debris above and below the Earth's surface. The full effects that fracking has on the physical health of people within Canada has been inconclusive, with the research currently undertaken. Suspected health-related concerns relate to the contamination of water, namely the large presence of chemicals such as benzene and other carcinogens. A pilot study was conducted by the University of Montreal on the effects of the exposure to fracking wastewater on pregnant Indigenous women within northeastern British Columbia. Benzene levels were found to be 3.5 times higher in Indigenous women than that of the general public. First Nations people within Canada are bearing the brunt of the negative effects of fracking operations. Infrastructure, including roads, ditches, and dams, are being built on the First Nations territories without their consent. The BC government has allowed natural gas companies to build on these lands without the need for environmental assessments or water permits. This is in open violation of Treaty 8. This treaty, signed in 1900, agreed to give BC First Nations people the right to continue practicing their way of life in exchange for opening up their lands. This ability has been compromised by the fracking operations that have violated and contaminated their lands. Reliance on natural gas and the industry created around it means that fracking isn't going anywhere anytime soon. The new sustainable fracking methods have emerged in an attempt to mitigate some of the negative effects of fracking. One potential method is the use of waterless fracking, where gelled fluid containing propane is used instead of water. As the gel retains sand better than water, it is believed that 1/8 of the liquid can be used to achieve similar results. It is a bit too simplistic to say flat out that it is good or bad. Perhaps the best solution is to consider an intermediary between the two. The issue of fracking within Canada can essentially be boiled down into two arguments about capitalism versus nature and what we prioritize as a society. Do we care more about the short-term financial gains or the long-term harm that fracking provides?
So yes, fracking is a considerable issue in terms of environment and society alike. And if we're not careful about this, the norm in Canada is going to be cities like this in Fort McKay, where we experience issues regarding